Hello there. Welcome into a Friday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening. And that app, which is free to download and free to use, is sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you. And I'd love to get your thoughts on this Friday. You could call or text into the show at 719-247-1313. Dave Toller, Air Force hockey radio analyst, will be my guest at the bottom of the hour. Falcons making some moves right now. They've got points in their last four. They come home for two against Robert Morris, the first of which is tonight at 7:05. So Dave will stop by to preview that for you. Let's start with hockey, actually. And look, it was bound to happen at some point. I know watching the Colorado Avalanche, you may have thought there's no way that this team is going to put up a clunker at any point this season. But they did. It's probably their second clunker of the year. The Boston loss wasn't a great performance from the Colorado Avalanche, but last night was a real stinker as they lose to the New York Islanders 6-3. Although our old friend St. Patrick apparently called it before the game started.
I said to them before the game, I believe that if there's a team that could surprise them, it's us. And the way we've been playing, we're playing really good hockey lately.
Patrick Waugh, seer of futures. And to his point, the Islanders have been playing good hockey. Ilya Sorokin, their goaltender, we never talk about him when we talk about the best goalies in the league, but when he's on his game, he's one of them. I thought he was pretty good last night. Matthew Schaefer, their young defenseman, this dude has made an immediate impact on that team. So to Patrick Waugh's point, yeah, the Isles have been playing very well, but this is the Colorado Avalanche we're talking about here. This is a team that had lost only once in regulation. A team that not only clears the next closest team by 10 goals for, but also clears the next closest team by 10 goals against. This is every bit a wagon that they were welcoming in. So while the Islanders were feeling pretty good about themselves, and they played well. They played a very good game last night. They don't win unless the Avs are off their game. That's the other side of last night. The Avs were flat out not good. And the number one thing was, man, they could not clear a puck from in front of their net if their lives depended on it last night. Every Islanders shot was met with a second and a third and sometimes a fourth and a fifth. The Avs could not clear the puck once the Islanders had a shot in on Mackenzie Blackwood. That was really poor. That was the aspect of the game. I think offensively, the Avs did score 3 goals. It wasn't necessarily, for them, it's an off night. But 3 goals is pretty good against Ilya Sorokin. So I don't think the issue last night was offensively. It was defensively. Their coverages were off. They way too much space for the Islanders to operate. They got good looks in on Blackwood. And again, it wasn't just one and done. It was 2, 3, 4 shots in on Mackenzie Blackwood before the Avs could get on the puck again. The sixth goal was an empty netter. So the 5 goals were largely due to the Avs' inability to limit the Islanders to 1, maybe 2 opportunities. And Jared Bednar, after the game, not pleased.
That can't happen. Like, we got to be harder at our net front. We weren't tonight. They were competitive there. I give them credit. I thought they played a really good game. I thought we fought and tried to stay in it and do the right things, but we had some guys that didn't have great nights and made some strange reads and made some mistakes that cost us. But more importantly, like, that battle at the net front, like, it has to be higher, quicker in a game like that.
So because we do this, and with Scott Wedgwood hurt, there is additional scrutiny on the play of Mackenzie Blackwood. I thought goals 2 and 4 were absolutely saves that Mackenzie Blackwood needs to come up with. So 2 of the 5, again, with the 6th goal being an empty netter, 2 of the 5, you look at it and you say, Mackenzie Blackwood's got to have those. So if you wanted to be hypercritical, you could say that those goals are what ultimately made the difference in the game. But that would be completely discounting the barrages that Mackenzie Blackwood had to stand up to because the team in front of him wouldn't help him get the puck out of their own end. So, but 2 of the 4 bad goals. Bad goals. And even then there was a moment midway through the second period where the Avs scored back-to-back goals. One was a Valeri Nichushkin redirect off a Sam Malinsky shot. And then the other was, from the Islanders' perspective, Sorokin could kind of look at it, or the Islanders could kind of look at it and say, really only one was a bad goal. One was a redirect, and the other was another redirection off of a Martin H's shot that ended up in the back of the net. But at that point, with the Avs putting 2 on the board in rapid succession, I thought, okay, here we go. Here come the Avs. And then shortly thereafter, Islanders go on a power play, and Matthew Barzal just puts on a tremendous. Now, too much space for him to operate, but he maneuvered that puck perfectly and beat Mackenzie Blackwood with a great shot. And that was it. That was a wrap. I know the Avs got one later, but that was the moment that the game was over. Avs got those 2. They needed to get the third. They didn't. Islanders scored next, and that was about it for the evening. So it was bound to happen, right? The Avalanche might, at the end of the year, be nearly perfect, but they're not going to be perfect. And it was the perfect confluence of events where it's a road game, you're not at your best, but you're playing a team that's in really good form right now. I don't know if the Brock Nelson return to Long Island made any difference. It was a very emotional night, I'm sure, for him. But, I mean, that's just one guy. Let's say that Brock Nelson was completely off of his game because of the tribute video and being back on Long Island for the first time as a member of the Avs. There's still a lot of other guys on that roster that could have picked up the slack for him. And it was a bad night, sloppy defensively, and just the want to in front of the net was not there for the Avs on the defensive end of the ice. So this will be a first or a second, because, again, I go back to that Bruins loss. But this will, to see how the Avs respond. I don't have a lot of doubt that they'll respond, but, along the way, there are little benchmarks where you go, okay, this is a new situation. Let's see how they handle it. This will be the first time this season where the Avs will have to bounce back from a really poor performance. Really poor performance. The other storyline last night was the first goal of the game that the Islanders scored. Okay, which really was emblematic of the entire evening. It was a scramble out front of Mackenzie Blackwood. He made an initial save. I think he made 2 initial saves. He sprawled out, trying to cover the puck with his pads, and one of the Islanders players pushes in the crease, mind you, pushes his pads away. So the puck is exposed, and the Islanders can keep hacking at it. And I believe it was the 4th or 5th swing they finally beat him for the first goal. Avs challenge. They lost the challenge. Jared Bednar, after the game, has maybe given up on goaltender interference.
If it's not goal interference, I don't know what is. You can't just shove the goalie's pads out of the way and then create a loose puck. But I'm getting them all wrong when I'm looking at the challenges around the league. So, I'm kind of out of my mind. I'm not going to challenge unless it's obvious. But to me, it was obvious.
I share in Jared Bednar's exasperation on this issue. And it's not a new issue in the NHL. Even the Islanders broadcast. I think it was Cal Clutterbuck is the analyst on MSG. Knew immediately what they were looking for. Knew immediately what the Avalanche were complaining about. And that's a highly decorated, longtime NHL veteran who spotted it immediately. I mean, even in explaining what happened, you could use the word interfered. Because what happened was that Islanders player interfered in the crease with Mackenzie Blackwood's ability to freeze that puck underneath his pads. I'm not going to, part of me with goaltender interference, it's that old adage about, we'll call it adult cinema. Okay, you know it when you see it. Goaltender interference should be one of those gut, yes, they interfered with him. And if you're explaining to a buddy what happened and you use the word interfere in it, then it is goaltender interference. I don't understand why this call, and it's not an Avs problem. Avs have lived a charmed life. I know they had a little bit of a rough stretch with Gabriel Landeskog getting some goals overturned on questionable calls. I get that. The Avs have lived a charmed life. This is not an Avs problem. This is an NHL problem. To me, it should be clear and obvious. And it shouldn't be needing 8 paragraphs in a rule book to explain what goaltender interference is. Mackenzie Blackwood was trying to freeze the puck with his pads, with his left pad, just to paint the picture for you. And the Islanders player pushed in the crease. Again, I cannot emphasize that enough, that all this happened inside the blue paint, pushed his pads away to expose the puck. He wasn't batting at the puck. That's one thing. If he's throwing his stick at the puck underneath Mackenzie Blackwood, then that's on the referees to whistle the play dead if he can't jar it loose. The play that the Islanders player made was on the pads of Mackenzie Blackwood. That should not be allowed. And there are things like this that happen constantly in the NHL. And it gets to the point that if they can't legislate this properly, then just don't allow any offensive player in the painted area. Right? Don't care if the puck is loose. You can't touch it. Once it's in the blue area, that's on the goaltender. He can make the save. You can't even put your stick in the painted area. I mean, is that what we have to get to? I don't want to get there. I think that it should be allowed for offensive players to keep hacking away at a goaltender. They have all of this equipment, all of this pads. They can smother the puck. I think the onus is on them, but Mackenzie Blackwood was trying to do that and was interfered with. To miss it on the ice is one thing. To go back and look at it and still miss it is what's unconscionable. I don't, and you know where I stand on replay review. I would just as soon be done with it in every sport, in every iteration. And this is why. Because some of the time, they don't even get the call right in the end. Super slow-mo, 8 different camera angles, stop, start, back up, start again, and they still can't get the call right. Didn't cost the Avs the game one iota. Okay? That's not what this is about at all. But it's like so many calls in the NFL, a catch, pass interference. This is the NHL's version of that. What is goaltender interference? If not when an opposing player moves your pads out of the way, not playing the puck in order to give a teammate another opportunity to bat the puck into the back of the net. That's goaltender interference. Which, in the end, all it did was just, I think, make Jared Bednar grumpier. But the main thing that will leave him grumpy after last night was his team's performance. Worst of the season. You can put another. You could say that the Boston game was in the same galaxy, but that was the worst performance the Avs have had all season. And now they turn around and play the Flyers on Sunday and try to bounce back. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on goaltender interference on the Avs loss to the Islanders. Just getting going on this Friday edition of Drive Time Sports. Glad to have you. You know, every athlete coming up on the end of his career is looking for that Michael Jordan or John Elway end, where not only do you go out on top with a championship, but you go out with still more to give. Right? Michael Jordan and John Elway both, John Elway talked about he was having some health issues that were popping up, but on the field, you wouldn't know that John Elway was struggling the way he played that final season. And he was great in the Super Bowl. Michael Jordan, same way. They could have come back if they really desired to, and it probably would not have looked as good. But they could have. And so that's what every, I think, athlete is chasing or is hoping that at the end of their career, that's what it's going to look like. Playing well on a championship stage, leave people wanting more. Far too often, though, it is not that way. You can get one or the other, but very rarely does it ever come together like it did for Elway and Jordan. Right? You end up on just hanging on for another year in a uniform that we don't recognize you in. Or you end a year not even sniffing a championship. Or you end up finishing your career as a far diminished player from what you were not that long ago. Peyton Manning would be a perfect example of this. Right? Because he got to go out on top, but you know as well as I do, Peyton Manning had the smallest contribution to that Super Bowl. He was a diminished player. And think about it. The Broncos didn't even need him for much of that season. They were rolling along with Brock Osweiler. Now, they were better off with Peyton, but you could see when Peyton Manning was out that year that it was the supporting cast that was guiding him along more than the other way around. For a player in Peyton Manning that every year up until that had been the biggest driving force behind either the Colts or the Broncos' success. But it flipped. And it was the Broncos in many ways carrying Peyton Manning across that finish line and at least sending him out as a champion. Even the way Peyton Manning's career ended is not common. What we are seeing now with LeBron James feels similar to Peyton Manning. What we have seen just so far this season is a team that without LeBron James gets by just fine. Right? Luka's off to a torrid start. Where did this Austin Reeves come from? The Lakers were fine without LeBron when he was dealing with the sciatica. He comes back. Last night, we saw a streak that started in January of 2007 come to an end. And that streak was LeBron James scoring at least 10 points in a basketball game. It started in January of 2007, and it ended last night. Unthinkable that LeBron James can't even get 10 points in a game. And tonight, Lakers' second night of a back-to-back against the Boston Celtics, no LeBron James. This sciatica is going to linger, and it's going to bother him all season. And it will limit his effectiveness. I'm not proclaiming this to be the end of LeBron James's career, that this will be the last year. I don't know. I think it's heading down the path that it could be. But we're always shocked when a player that, for the vast majority of his career, again, the Peyton Manning example, when all of a sudden he just doesn't have it. It's just gone. As they say in soccer parlance, the football has left him. It's just overnight. Now, it's not some mystical force. It's age, it's injury. But LeBron James, you could argue, was one of the 10 best players in the NBA last year. And now doesn't look to be in that group at all. Now, LeBron James could have tried to get that streak continuing, and to his credit, he passed it off for a game-winning shot. That's another comparison to Peyton Manning, right? I'm not saying that the Lakers aren't better with him, but they got by pretty well without him. And if the Lakers are going to sniff a title, they need LeBron James. Even at not the height of his powers, they're going to need him. In the Western Conference, they're better with him than without him. But we have seen this Lakers team win games without him. We know it's Luka's team now. And we see a diminished version of LeBron James. And with the nature of his injuries, I don't know that it's something that we'll just wake up one day and LeBron James is feeling great and is back to his old self. But, I mean, none of this is his fault. The guy is 40. Right? It's unbelievable that he's played at the level he has for as long as he has. This is no indictment of LeBron James. But everything that's going on with LeBron right now reminds me so much of that final year of Peyton Manning. Now, maybe the Broncos don't actually win the Super Bowl if they're trusting Brock Osweiler to be their quarterback. Maybe in some small way, Peyton Manning did help them win that title. But for what Peyton Manning was for the Denver Broncos leading up into that season, he was far less of a reason why they were successful than he had been in any previous year when he'd been in Denver. And you're seeing the same thing with the Lakers. They have Luka now. They have Austin Reeves playing at an all-star level. Can LeBron make that little difference to take them from a 5th seed to a 4th seed, or the first round to the second round? Certainly. Certainly he can. I don't see the Lakers getting out of the West. So it's not like, okay, LeBron, go ahead and go away now. But he's not, I don't think he's going to help the Lakers as much as maybe fans were hoping he would this year. The intellect is still there. The playmaking ability still there. The IQ. And that can help. And let's face it, there's not a guy next up on the depth chart that you'd rather have in there than LeBron. But the way I would describe it, this is the beginning of the end of LeBron James's career. And what ultimately he's able to do between now and the ultimate end, we'll find out. But LeBron James out one night after his consecutive 10-point streak ended. He's out with this sciatica thing again. Take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, Dave Toller previews tonight's game one of a 2-game series, Air Force and Robert Morris. Drive Time Sports on your home for Air Force hockey, Extra Sports 1300. Tonight, the red-hot Air Force Falcons are back at Cadet Ice Arena taking on Robert Morris, the first of 2 games tonight. Puck drop just after 7. Joining me now to preview the weekend's festivities is the radio analyst for the team. He is Dave Toller. Tolles, good to have you.
Thanks for having me on, Ryan.
So common thread over these last couple of weekends that has Air Force taking points in all of them?
Well, goaltending. I mean, that's number one. Dominic Wasik has changed the whole complexion of this team. He didn't even have a stall. He was dressing in a folding chair back in August, and he's emerged as the number one goalie. He was the goalie of the month in Atlantic hockey, and he's played great. That's the bottom line. And as a result of that, the penalty kill's gotten better, and everything has just improved, and his confidence continues to grow with every single game that he plays. So that's really been the biggest difference, because at one point Air Force was 1-4-1 and things were not looking very good, but Dominic Wasik, the junior, stepped in and really turned things around.
I asked Chris Hedden this question yesterday, and I fully expected the answer he gave me. But being around the team like you are, was there talk? Were there signs that Dominic Wasik could be arguably the best goalie in this conference at some point during his career?
I don't know that there was. It was it was up for grabs. I mean, the job was wide open at the beginning of the season, and Air Force went through three different players, three different goalies to try to find somebody, and then all of a sudden at RIT, Air Force lost that second game, but Wasik played really good, and as a result of that, he got the next game, and he comes home and shuts out Brown and hasn't missed a start since. So, I don't know that anybody could have predicted this, back in September, early October. Maybe the players, that see him every single day in practice, but for the rest of us, I don't think anybody could have predicted that.
Speaking of Chris Hedden, I would expect him to be humble and a bit self-deprecating when I asked him this question yesterday, but I'll, just like with the Wasik question, I rely on you for the truth. This award that he received, the HCA National Co-Defender of the Month, that means in the month of November, no one played that position better than Chris Hedden in America, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
So what has he done recently? Because he's all, Chris Hedden's been at the forefront of our minds for years now. He's been an incredibly important player for Air Force, but what has unlocked this next level that he seems to be playing at?
He's always had that offensive side to his game. He always has. When he came in as a freshman, I mean, he was a point producer. He's a power play guy, and when he has the puck on his stick, he can really go. He's one of those guys that when he's skating, his jersey is flapping behind him. He's going so fast, so he can really move. But I think the biggest difference is his defensive side. Like, you look at what he did over the that last month on the offensive side with the 13 points, but he blocked 15 shots and he was a +4. So that tells you that not only is he playing good in the offensive zone and producing points and on the power play, but he's also throwing his body in front of frozen pucks and knocking down shots and helping his goalie. And then being a +4 tells you that, when he's on the ice, Air Force scores more often than not. So I think that those are the pieces that he's really added to his game to be a more complete defenseman.
Dave Toller, my guest. He will be on the call alongside Jay Ritchie tonight and tomorrow for the two games, Air Force and Robert Morris. The next guy that needs to get some sort of an honor is Nick Sajovic. What he has been able to do to lead the conference in points. I mean, what has allowed, I know it's assists because he also leads the conference in assists, but what has allowed him to be the top point producer in Atlantic hockey?
Yeah, Ryan, that's a great point, because, he hasn't gotten any of those accolades. He hasn't been a conference player of the week. He hasn't been any of that. And we saw this at the end of last season. He is a playmaker. He gets the puck on his stick, and you see the 2 goals and then the 16 assists. He makes everybody around him better. And that line that he's playing with, that's our super sophomore line with Dawson on the left and Sam Stitz on the right. All those guys really just play well together. They have great chemistry. And Nick's a guy that, I mean, and he wins a ton of faceoffs too. He's, he leads the conference in faceoff winning percentage. So when you have the puck, you win those faceoffs, you have the puck, and then you have a couple of guys next to you like Dawson and Stitz that can go to the net and they can score. Nick has a way of just finding those guys, and he's very patient with the puck. He has tremendous vision, and he can see those guys, and they have a way of getting open. And next thing you know, he zips a puck through some skates and sticks, and right there on the back door is one of his line mates to tap it in. So he's quietly having a phenomenal season.
How important is the recent form of Anthony Yu for this Air Force team?
Yeah, we really needed him to jump up and score some points, and we knew he could. Playing in junior hockey, he was always a guy that scored points. He's an offensive kind of player, and the first 10 games of the season, he didn't score a single point, not an assist, nothing. But over the last 6 games, he's got 5 points, he's got 3 goals, he has a game winner, and last season it was a goal by Anthony Yu that ended Robert Morris's season in double overtime. He scored that goal to, send Air Force on the road in the quarterfinals and ended Robert Morris's season. So a guy that is playing pretty well and has a little confidence against the Colonials, that's a good thing. And that second line that he plays on, they've been playing really well together too.
Dave Toller, my guest. Given the recent form of Air Force and where Robert Morris is, I know they're coming off of a good weekend where they picked up some results, but they have been struggling mightily before that. Would it be fair to characterize this weekend as a trap series for Air Force?
They really got to be careful, Ryan. You're right on. And not only in the hockey sense, but when you look at the academy in general. So finals week is coming up next week. And this past week was a week when the cadets had a ton of papers and projects due. So I think, academically, it's a challenging time for the guys to get their heads right and be in the right place. And then, yeah, of course, hockey-wise, Robert Morris, they did get some points last weekend, but they've struggled this season. Air Force is riding high. That Robert Morris would love nothing more than to go into their holiday break getting the majority of the points against the team that ended their season last year. So they've got a ton of motivation on their side. They're going into a long holiday break like Air Force is too after this weekend. So, I think, you look at the records, Robert Morris 3-9-2, but they opened the season with a series at Michigan and a series at Notre Dame. So they played really good people. And then they kind of went into a lull. They lost non-conference series to Lindenwood and Long Island, which are games I think that Robert Morris felt they probably should have got a couple of those in the middle of that, but they did get 5 points last week at Mercyhurst. So, they're coming in with a little confidence, but yeah, they're going to remember last March with their season ended in this building.
What is a more tangible area of concern as far as what Robert Morris does from a hockey sense? What would be at the top of the list of concerns for Frank Serratori?
Yeah, I think, and you always hear Frank say it's all about us. It's not really about them, and they're just a good, solid team. They're a veteran club. They have 11 juniors on the team, which is the largest junior class of any team in the country. So they're a veteran team. They're big. They're physical. But I think that the way Air Force is playing, if Air Force can find a way to play this weekend the same way that they played the last 4 weeks, I think they're going to come out with the majority of the points. But if they don't, and they slip up or they take a step back, this Robert Morris team will pounce quickly.
The first of two tonight, just after 7 o'clock, you'll hear Tolles alongside Jay Ritchie right here on Extra Sports 1300. Tolles, appreciate the time. I'll come bug you here in a little bit.
Sounds great, Ryan. See you in a couple hours.
Yep, that sounds good. That's Dave Toller, one half of our outstanding Air Force hockey broadcast team, joining me here on Drive Time Sports. So you get the radio side tonight at 7:05 and tomorrow at 4:05. Note that time if you're a frequenter of Air Force hockey games. Tomorrow's game has been moved up an hour. Why? Because of me. Well, Not really because of me, but the game was moved up an hour because it will be airing on Altitude. Both games tonight and tomorrow night are on Altitude. Tonight, I will be doing the play-by-play of the game alongside Stanley Cup champion, former Av, Eric Johnson. And then tomorrow, I'll move a seat over, so to speak, and I'll be doing the analyst side of things with Josh Howe as the play-by-play. But the game was moved up an hour tomorrow to allow for that game to be aired on Altitude. So make a note of that if you're going out to Saturday's game, and also another way to consume tonight's game if you so choose tonight, myself alongside Eric Johnson. Wanting to get back, Aaron brought up something really good in the last segment, talked about how I think this is kind of the begin. We're seeing the signs of the beginning of the end for LeBron James. Injuries that are nagging, streaks that were held for the vast majority of his career are ending, and it's a team that doesn't need him as much as they used to. And as far as that streak goes, Aaron texted in, said, can we just take a second to recognize what an incredible streak that was that ended for LeBron? Cooper Flagg wasn't even one when it started. Yeah, he was a few, I think 3 weeks old. Bronny was 2 years old. What's the other one I heard? Oh, the iPhone hadn't even come out yet. The last time that LeBron James failed to score 10 points in an NBA game. The iPhone. And what are we on, like iPhone 20? I mean, that's unbelievable that somebody had a streak going that long. And I know 10 points in an NBA game doesn't seem like, a huge accomplishment, but to be even that productive for 18 years? Almost 19? That's what it would mean, 19 calendar years. Every basketball game you play, you can at least get 10 points. But that's why that streak coming to an end last night just kind of beat me over the head with this realization. Like, oh, this is the beginning of the end. And we theorized that maybe LeBron's career was coming to an end. But the way he played last year, it's like, this guy's got years left. But we've seen it in other sports, especially football. It goes like that. And you can't predict it, but once it's there, you know. And it just all sets up with the passing of the torch to Luka, the emergence of Austin Reeves, the Lakers mentality right now, and it's all that. And I don't like to get into all that stuff with the passive aggressive and LeBron being, but the fact of the matter is the Lakers have Luka in mind more than LeBron now. The team is transitioning. They're moving on. And LeBron can help them be successful in the meantime. But he's quickly becoming the third option. LeBron James, the third option. Never said that about this guy. None of this is a knock on LeBron James. None of this is. In fact, it just speaks to his greatness. That we had to wait till he was approaching 41 years old to start talking about LeBron being a lesser version of himself. But that's where we are right now. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, why Bo Nix does not care that you want to call the Broncos 10-2 record fraudulent.
With promo code
Welcome in hour 2 on this Friday. Appreciate you watching the show on YouTube, X, Instagram, Facebook. You can find it on all of those places. My social media as well. I am at Gingerly Tweets on X, at Gingewatch on Twitter. Those are kind of puns. If you want to go through the station to watch this show on a daily basis, easy enough, at XTRA Sports 1300. While you're there, like, subscribe, follow, and drop a comment. This is an interactive show. Or you could text or call into the show at 719-247-1313. Broncos getting ready for the Raiders. Bit of a do-over here for the Denver Broncos. Hoping for a better outing than they had on that Thursday night against the Raiders. But if they are able to win, no matter how ugly it might be, they will have the top seed in the AFC over the idle Patriots. And the quarterback of the football team of record says he does not care that you don't think their 10-2 record is that impressive.
The worst thing you can do is let other people tear down a 10-2 record, whether it's saying you don't play anybody or, you're just relying on defense or whatever negative somebody's going to put on a positive. It's always going to happen. And we don't really worry about it. We're just excited. We know we've come a long way. This franchise and organization has had some great years, and then, went into a little, lull there for a minute. But then, it just takes a couple guys. We get back on track, and all of a sudden we're 10-2 and right where we want to be in every aspect of our season. And, everybody can, talk about a 10-2 record and make excuses of why we have it, but you still have to win games. You're still playing NFL teams who pay their players just as much as we are paid. So I think it's important to not lose track of that. And it's, a good perspective to have that no matter what's going on, you've worked hard and you've got yourself to a 10-2 record. And we believe we could have been, even better.
Good insight, good mentality from Bo Nix, but of course you expect nothing less. This guy has been extremely polished as a messenger and in the face of this team since he arrived in Denver last year. But he's right. Like, I can look at the things he points out. Their strength of schedule. They're 24th in the NFL. That's just a fact. That they have not played a murderer's row of teams. The team that they're looking to overtake for the number 1 seed has had an even easier schedule to get to where they are, the New England Patriots. And I pointed this out the other day. You want a tough strength of schedule? You want to see what teams have been through the gauntlet? Either you got to look to the NFC or you got to look to teams that are getting buried under the weight of their schedule. The Tennessee Titans have one of the toughest strength of schedules in the NFL. The Kansas City Chiefs, who are currently on the outside of the playoffs looking in, have had one of the most difficult schedules in the NFL. A lot of these AFC teams are sitting where they are, and I brought up Jacksonville the other day. You want a team to hold up as a real contender based on strength of schedule? Look to the Jaguars. Jaguars have played one of the toughest schedules, in large part because the AFC South that we poke fun at most years is arguably the best division in the AFC. And the Jaguars are sitting atop that division. Now, they've lost 2 more games than the Broncos and the Patriots have, so you can decide how much that makes a difference. But it's a fact that the Broncos have not played one of the more difficult schedules. That you look at, great wins. Philly, Kansas City. That's about it. And that's if you think that beating Kansas City at home is a great win. That's about it. But there aren't a lot of teams in the AFC that are in the playoff picture right now that can hold up, more quality wins than that. But it's a fact that their schedule has been pretty light. It is a fact that they are very much a defensive-led team. And their defense has more often than not this year bailed out the offense. And all told, the Denver Broncos are the best of a largely unremarkable bunch in the AFC. And if they are able to win a Super Bowl, we will not look at them like we look at the Chiefs or the Patriots or the 49ers or some of these other teams. They will not hold up well historically. They just won't. But you know what? I don't think they care. Right? The Broncos have mastered this formula that Sean Payton put into place the moment he got to Denver. They have mastered it at the exact right time. Life is about timing, right? The Broncos this year have had impeccable timing. The conference overall is a little bit down. And they sit atop of it. Somebody's got to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. So I don't blame the Broncos one bit for not apologizing for their record. They shouldn't apologize, but it doesn't mean that the things that Bo Nix referenced at the beginning of that clip are not valid criticisms or valid critiques of the Broncos' resume. This idea that all you got to do is win games, that's nonsense. And the Broncos are a perfect example. The Chiefs last year are a great example. It doesn't just matter if you win. It's not just win, baby. Not for perception. Style points matter. And the way that the Broncos are winning all of these games, and you want to look at the most extreme case, look at the last meeting with the Raiders. Right? There were 0 style points earned by the Denver Broncos in that game. But they are taking advantage of a conference that's a little bit in flux right now. That there are no teams that you go to. The team I believe in the most in these AFC playoffs is the current 7 seed. And look, it's to that end, it's not just the Denver Broncos. When I said earlier this week that New England is a better team than Denver, I believe it, but I'm not putting the Patriots among calling them a juggernaut. And just look at the fluidity of this conference. The biggest game this weekend, I could argue, is Jacksonville, Indy. Because if Indianapolis loses to Jacksonville, and in the other game that will be in contention for the most consequential game of the weekend, Kansas City and Houston on Sunday night, if Houston wins and the Colts lose, we're looking at the very real possibility that the team that looked like a juggernaut early in the season beat the Denver Broncos early in the season. The story in the NFL the first month of the year could end up failing to finish the race. The Colts could be out of the playoffs entirely. So the teams that people believe are good at one point in the season aren't even believed to be that now. There's been so much change in what the Broncos have done, and this is where you have to give them credit. They've stayed consistent. They've stayed right here. Right? There have been a few games. The Cincinnati game would be one that immediately comes to mind where the Broncos look really, really good. But what's going to get you places this year with no super teams is just being consistent. And that's what the Broncos have been. Consistently lackluster. I wouldn't begrudge you for using that phrase. But they have been consistent, and certainly in that building, there's no reason for them to apologize. And part of the reason why the Denver Broncos have been consistent is because of Bo Nix in clutch situations. Here's Bo Nix on where that comes from.
A little bit is the competitive spirit you're born with, but also just the I've been through several situations having to be down at the end of the game. I've won some, I've lost some, and this year we just happened to win them more than we've lost.
And we have, and I'm not surprised, and I'm guilty of this, we've already moved past the stage of what Bo Nix is compared to his predecessors, and we're already on to, is he ultimately the guy? Right? And Bo Nix has been the victim of the team's success in a way because of that. Because now he's at the helm of this 10-2 football team that is on the verge of being 11-2, has a chance to make the AFC playoffs, go through Denver. And that phrase Super Bowl has come up repeatedly. And in this league, it has been proven that far more often than not, you got to be one of the best at the quarterback position in order to win a Super Bowl. So it's partly the way our minds work and the way the discourse works in the NFL world, but it's also Bo Nix being the victim of his own success and the team's success, because now the Super Bowl has been thrown out there and everybody's trying to judge Bo Nix on whether he's a Super Bowl caliber quarterback. But if we could take a step back from that conversation for just a moment, what the Broncos do have is the best quarterback they've had since Peyton Manning. And that is inarguable. For all his faults, for all of those games where he leaves you scratching your head, he is better than what that franchise has had for years, and it is a reason why the Broncos are where they are. Which sounds crazy to say, again, because everybody's looking at Bo Nix, including me, and saying that he's the guy that in some ways will hold them back from their ultimate prize. But he's so much better than what this franchise has had. And being that much better than what the Broncos have previously had is partly why they're 10-2, but also at the same time, that double-edged sword, it's part of the reason why there's a fair amount of doubters, including yours truly, that this is ultimately a Super Bowl winning team. This has been kind of a different week leading up to a game because it feels like a foregone conclusion that the Denver Broncos are going to be sitting atop the AFC. There's not a lot of conversation about, X's and O's. It's been very introspective this week from everybody. Cortland Sutton, Pat Surtain, Sean Payton, Bo Nix, they're all looking inward and talking about their personality types and why they hate to lose, and they hate to lose more than they love to win. It's been that kind of a week. It hasn't been a lot of how do you stop this or how do you get this going. But there is, I'll introduce some of that to the conversation. And I'll start with Bo Nix. Bo Nix has got to be better on Sunday than he was on that Thursday. I mean, it starts there. If the goal here is for the Denver Broncos to kind of make up for that performance on Thursday night, Bo Nix has to be better. 1 touchdown and 2 picks. And another aspect of the Broncos game that needs to be better, Jeremy Crawshaw. Haven't talked a lot about Crawshaw. We did after that Raider game, didn't we? This Broncos team plays that field position game. They're very reliant on winning field position, and Crawshaw repeatedly put them in awful situations. So 2 players that need to be better than they were against the Raiders for the Broncos to put on a better performance, Bo Nix and Jeremy Crawshaw. And then the third guy I'll insert into the conversation, I mentioned him earlier this week, but this is not just a Raider thing. This is a rest of the season thing. RJ Harvey. Showcase RJ Harvey. Get RJ Harvey going more than you did against the Commanders. So those will be the 3 players that I'm most looking out for on Sunday. Crawshaw, Nix, and RJ Harvey. Broncos and Raiders Sunday at 2. Take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, why the ping pong balls gave American soccer fans the absolute worst thing today. Well, today was the World Cup draw. Of course, next year, the World Cup will be in North America. And perhaps the good old US of A got a friendly hometown draw. But with that, FIFA has given, or fate, as it were, has given American soccer fans the most dangerous thing: hope. Because on paper, the U.S. should waltz to the round of 16. They should make light work of both the group stage and even their next game. The group they are in, a playoff has to happen. But more likely than not, Turkey is going to be that fourth team in the U.S.'s group. The U.S., as down as they are, right? And the Pochettino era has been mixed at the very least. Turkey would be the highest ranked team other than the United States. U.S. is ranked 14th. Turkey is 25th. The other two teams in their group, Australia, which is ranked 26th in the world, and Paraguay, which is 39th. And by the way, the U.S. beat Paraguay not that long ago. The U.S. did not end up in the group of death. In fact, you could argue that they are in one of the easier groups to get out of. And if they are able to do that, and if they are able to win the group, they will avoid the real group of death, or the group of death, which is Group L. I believe Group L was dubbed the group of death. England, Croatia, Ghana, and Panama. If the U.S. were to win their group, their first match of the knockout round in the round of 32 would not be any one of those teams. Now, there's a lot of machinations on who it could be, but also if they win their group, they would play a third place team in another group and not Group L. And I am hard pressed to find a group other than L that goes 3 deep. So the U.S., again, should waltz into the round of 16, at which point they will take on, and I'm just telling you how this entire World Cup will play out a year in advance, they will most likely meet up with Belgium. And this is a Belgian team that, look, ranked top 10 in the world, but some of those stalwarts on Belgium, a little bit over the hill. Kevin De Bruyne, Romelu Lukaku, no Eden Hazard. It's a very different looking Belgian team than in years past. Still a good team. But what will happen is if the U.S. coasts through group play and the round of 32, that hope will just compound upon itself. And many U.S. soccer fans will look at Belgium, even though they're ranked top 10 in the world, and will not see those big names, or at least notice that those big names are not what they used to be. And they will believe that they will win. At which point, even the most self-deluded American soccer fan will acknowledge that in the quarterfinal round, a potential matchup with world number 1 Spain would be an end to the U.S.'s run in the World Cup. But if the U.S. were to get to the quarterfinal, it'd be a Huge success. But this draw today has given U.S. soccer fans, I think, the most dangerous thing, which is hope. And they are, I mean, you may be unfamiliar with U.S. soccer fans. Take the fan of a Major League Baseball team and that line that runs through their head every spring and multiply it by 10. This is a group of fans, which I can say that I am a part of that fan base, that will take any little sliver of hope and blow it up. That idea of hope springs eternal, it is nothing compared to when U.S. soccer fans get even a little bit of hope. And this draw gave them a lot of it. Paraguay, Australia, most likely Turkey, a third-place team from another group, and then on to Belgium against Seattle, or against Belgium in Seattle, I should say. A Belgian team that may not look like previous iterations of the Belgian national team. Still on paper, better than the U.S. But that doesn't much matter, does it? Because if the U.S. looks great in getting through the group stage and winning their round of 32 match, there's going to be a lot of belief in a soccer crazed part of this country, which Seattle absolutely is. There are a lot of people that are going to be going to, we can't call it Lumen Field. It won't be called that. Sponsors not allowed. But there will be a lot of belief. Those chants of I believe that we will win, it'll be loud. Because Belgium is not, I think, going to be a team that is going to scare U.S. fans, although you could argue that maybe they should. But this is a sweetheart of a draw. It really is. And which makes Pochettino's job all downside. There's all downside for him in this World Cup. Because the expectations, I just mapped it out. Should the U.S. come up short of the round of 16, I don't see the reason why they should. I really don't. It is like all downside for Pochettino and company. But that's the World Cup draw. A couple of other notes on a more local level. Switchbacks fans, one of the best stories of this World Cup, and certainly of World Cup qualifying, has been the Haitian national team, which Switchbacks players Duke Lacroix and Garvin Matusla are members of. They have been one of the best stories right there with Scotland. Coincidentally, they're going to be in the same group. But Garvin and Duke will be going up against Brazil in the group stage and a rising power in world soccer, Morocco. I know Morocco they don't have the history that Brazil or Germany or France or some of these other teams have. I'm telling you, Morocco is a sleeping giant. And they're ranked 11th in the world. They're not scrubs. It's going to be tough for Haiti to get the top two in Group C. But again, third place teams can get through to the round of 32. So if you want a rooting interest outside the United States of America, if you're a Switchbacks fan, I would be looking to Haiti. with Duke and Garvin. Speaking of the switchbacks, one other note just to tie a bow on the soccer conversation. Welcome back, Speedy Williams. Club just announced that they signed Speedy for the next couple of years. You cannot understate how detrimental the loss of Speedy Williams was. Coming off of the championship year, he went to Lexington. I think they're in a quiet moment. I think Speedy might have some regret because with Lexington, I don't know that it was all what he had hoped. I mean, I don't know what he was hoping for it to be. But him immediately returning tells me, it reminds me a little bit of Bruce Brown. Right? Maybe there's not buyer's remorse. Maybe there's not regret. But what happened with Bruce Brown? Left the Nuggets after the championship for a very specific reason, which no one can begrudge him for. And about 10 minutes later, Bruce Brown posting things on social media, giving the indication that he very much missed being with the Denver Nuggets. It reminds me a little bit of that. But getting Speedy Williams back to hold down the middle of the field, it's a good get for the switchbacks and certainly fits into the culture. This is a guy that played for the switchbacks for years, knows Alan McCann. Alan McCann knows him. But one of the fan favorites and one of the more consequential players during the switchbacks championship run, back with the club as the team announced Speedy Williams will return and be here for the next few years, actually. 719-247-1313. Your thoughts on the return of Speedy Williams or the World Cup draw? We'll take some of your thoughts next on Extra Sports 1300. Let's hit the text line here. A couple of Broncos opinions that I want to share with you. Let's start with the 719. This is a longer text, but I'd like to respond to it. Says, I don't understand why people are calling them, being the Broncos, frauds. They still have to go through the same preseason, all the practices, and all the games of every other team. They still have to play against other professional football players and the other 32 teams in the National Football League, which is basically what Bo Nix was saying. So to call them frauds, I think, is a little hypocritical. I don't know what... I mean, I guess I get what you're saying. The reason why they're being called frauds or that their record is a little fraudulent, and I think we've tried to debunk this a little bit this week, but it's the fact that they don't look impressive. They don't impress people. And if you're not impressed by a team and yet they're sitting there with the 10-2 record, that's one of the words you go to, fraudulent. They've gotten lucky. Right? They've gotten lucky. They're lucky to be 10-2 because they aren't a great football team. That's where this comes from. Your next point. Nobody was calling the Chiefs frauds. Oh, yes, they were. Oh, yes, they were. I can tell you unequivocally that the Chiefs were being called fraudulent. The Chiefs, it wasn't just that they were fraudulent. The Chiefs, the only thing, at least with the Broncos, it's being attributed a little bit to their defense. With the Chiefs, it was attributed to the referees. So that's not true at all. The Kansas City Chiefs, and this holds up, when you win a lot of close games, people will doubt you. So the Chiefs were absolutely called frauds. They were called frauds, and it was said that the only reason they were winning the games was because they were getting all the calls from the referees. So I really got to push back against that one. So all I can say as a Broncos fan to end the text, I appreciate the grind and the winning that they're doing right now. As you should. Right? And there is something to be said for the consistency that they have shown. And they're not devoid of talent. Right? This is where we always go. This isn't Rocktober, and they're not the Tebow Broncos. They're not. Now, are they good enough to be the Peyton Manning Super Bowl 50 Broncos? I don't think so. But they're not the Tebow Broncos, and this isn't the football version of Rocktober. It's not fraudulent. But there are teams that have more of an upside that I am willing to bet on than the Denver Broncos. I think that extra little bit, that extra gear, I think that Drake May and the Patriots have it in them. I know that Buffalo does. I know they haven't been what they have been in previous years, but I still think that there's another gear that they can go to in a one-game winner-take-all type situation. So when I doubt that the Denver Broncos are going to win a Super Bowl, it's not because I don't think that they're good, and it's not because I think that this is all smoke and mirrors. But what we haven't seen is this team find another gear that the stakes and the stage that the playoffs provide require. And ultimately, we're not going to know. Closest thing they're going to get to it is Arrowhead on Christmas night. Maybe if the Broncos go in and beat the Chiefs on Christmas, maybe that's a game where some people start to change their tune a little bit about the Denver Broncos. Because say what you will about this year's version of the Kansas City Chiefs, going into Arrowhead and winning a game would be impressive. It would be an impressive victory. And if they can add some style points to it, but ultimately, they have to show it in the postseason. I will be proven right or wrong. The haters will be proven right or wrong. You, the texter, will be proven right or wrong ultimately in the playoffs. I don't think there's a lot of perceptions that are going to be changed between now and the end of the year. I think we're all pretty dug in on what we think about the Denver Broncos, good, bad, or indifferent. They deserve credit for what they have done. But the fact of the matter is, the teams that for a long time have been elite, Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo, the fact of the matter is they're just not what they have been previously. And with them being kind of on everyone else's level, it has given a team like Denver that has a formula that they are able to execute on a game in, game out basis, and it's why they're 10-2. And look, New England does a lot of the same things. New England and Denver are very similar. New England wants to run the ball. New England wants to play great defense. But the separator between the two, in large part, Drake May. But do we know what Drake May is going to be in the postseason? We don't. We're all theorizing, and that's been the unpredictability of this NFL season, is that we have these teams and these quarterbacks here. I mean, look, Caleb, Bo, and Drake are all going to be probably in the postseason. They may be the top 3 seeds in the entire NFL. Right now, it's the Patriots and Bears who are on top of each of their conference, and here's the Broncos that could flip-flop with New England with the win this weekend. 3 second-year quarterbacks. Maybe we would have 4 if Jaden Daniels would have stayed healthy. And then you have the Jaguars, and then with the first-year head coach, and you have the Indianapolis Colts with Daniel freaking Jones. It's a lot of unproven commodities that we are discussing on a week-to-week basis. Now for the counter. From the 719, they're doing a lot of things that haven't been done before in the NFL. It's pretty Rocktober-ish. What the winning, what is it, 4 straight games by 3 or fewer points? I'm taking. Look, I think you could come back in a few weeks if the Broncos continue to win games by 3 or fewer points and start to raise that thing. But look, we're talking about how many games in a row this team has won. And I would say that the Broncos, the thing about Rocktober is that you looked at the parts of that Rockies team and you're like, how are they doing this? You can at least look to the defensive side of the football, if nothing else, and say there's a reason why teams aren't able to pull away from the Denver Broncos, aren't able to put up big numbers. One thing that I do I do think will be similar to the Tebow Broncos into October is when it ends, I think it will end spectacularly bad for the Denver Broncos. I don't think that their season's going to come to an end on a last-second field goal. But how many teams can end their season unceremoniously? I don't think there's a lot of them. Going back to that extra gear. But fair point on the Giants game. I think Sean Payton has mastered a formula here. I don't think this is a fluke. I think this is intentional. And yes, you could point out a game here and a game there and could use those to try and make your argument. I think this has been something that Sean Payton has tried to get the Denver Broncos to do the entire time he's been here. And I think that there's a level of credit that is deserved. Doesn't mean you have to buy into them as the favorites to win the Super Bowl. I don't. But even if so they lose the Giants game. Let's say they lose one of these recent games where they won by 3 or fewer points. You're still talking about a team that is atop the AFC West. Okay, so if you want to say the fact that they're going to be atop the AFC, that they've had some good fortune, that maybe that's a little fraudulent, a little fluky, then okay. But to say that it's entirely fluky, that they're here for no reason, I think that's taking it a step too far. I had an assertion earlier that Bo Nix is the best quarterback the Broncos have had since Peyton Manning. I didn't think it was that controversial. Same texter. Teddy Bridgewater actually has a better career rating than Nix, and his 1 year in Denver has a better rating than both years of Nix. Also, Russell Wilson blows Nix out of the water when it comes to rating. Wilson's first year with Sean Payton is better than any year Nix has had. Well, with Russell Wilson, did you factor in his 43 sacks that he took? I'm sure you could point out a few things here, but let me counter what you're saying about Russell Wilson's rating by throwing in all the sacks that he took. And let's throw in, I know you want to say the Giants game was entirely fraudulent. Okay, how about some of these other fourth quarter performances? Russell Wilson was a player that wilted in the clutch. Bo Nix rises in the clutch. Maybe on a statistical level, you can make a case here. And with Teddy Bridgewater, I don't know if Teddy Bridgewater's 1 year, Bo Nix is going to surpass him in yards and in touchdowns. But can we do the eyeball test a little bit here? I mean, this is not a high bar to clear. We can agree on this. Yes, I'm not talking about Bo Nix being better than Peyton Manning or John Elway, but of the group, okay, you want to point out a couple things with Teddy Bridgewater? All right, maybe it's not as inarguable. Fair enough. I will concede that. I think Bo Nix is better. I think he is a better quarterback than anyone the Broncos have had. He's going to be more prolific than Teddy Bridgewater was. And while I don't judge wins as a quarterback stat, just look at Bo Nix's contributions in wins. I mean, man, to put me on the other side and argue for Bo Nix. It's a place I'm not usually in, but I appreciate that. I'll stick with it. I'll stick with it and say that Bo Nix is the best quarterback. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater over the course of his entire career, I could say that about Joe Flacco. That over the course of his career, Joe Flacco's better. In a Broncos uniform, I think Bo Nix has been better than what the Broncos have had since Super Bowl 50. Needs to look like it on Sunday, right? Be harder for me to make that argument if Bo Nix puts up 2 clunkers against the Raiders. That'll be it for today. Appreciate your patronage and the interaction. I will talk to you on Altitude at 7 alongside Eric Johnson, or tomorrow on Altitude for Air Force Hockey. Enjoy your weekend. We'll rehash everything that happened coming up on Monday.